I spent the whole morning in a rental house that smelled like hairspray and toasted bagels, watching other women turn into an idea of themselves. The kitchen was a carousel of bridesmaids in matching satin robes, champagne colored, because everything at this wedding was either champagne or blush or neutral in a way that still felt loud. Someone had a speaker going on the counter, a playlist full of sing along pop songs that made us all feel like we were in on a joke I didn't quite get. Curling irons clicked open and shut like nervous little mouths. The bride, Tessa, floated between rooms with her lips pressed together in a way that tried to be calm and kept turning into a smile. She looked genuinely happy, and I loved her for it. I did. I'd known her since freshman year, since the days when she borrowed my sweaters and stole my fries and cried on my dorm room floor because her boyfriend, then, not now, didn't text with enough enthusiasm. Now she was marrying a man who adored her with the kind of steadiness you can lean your whole life on. A good man, a golden retriever in a suit. He sent her coffee emojis and meant them. He remembered the names of her cousins. He cried at the rehearsal dinner, openly, with his hand over his mouth like he couldn't believe his own feelings were allowed. Everyone kept saying how lucky she was, how perfect it all was, and I nodded along because it was. It was perfect. It was just that perfection made something in me itch. I told myself I was tired. I told myself it was the cheap champagne from the night before, when the bridal party had done shots like we were still 22. I told myself it was the shapewear cutting my body into someone else's body. I told myself it was the way my phone kept lighting up with a group chat full of heart emojis and "we're doing this," and I couldn't find a single real sentence in it to hold on to. At one point, while the others lined up in front of a mirror to admire their identical updos, I slipped out the back door and stood on the deck in my bare feet. The air was cool and smelled like cut grass and someone's distant barbecue. Beyond the yard, the venue grounds rolled out like a postcard. Late summer trees, an old white barn repurposed into something expensive, strings of lights already hung in anticipation. The sky was the kind of blue that looks painted on, like a backdrop. I could hear laughter inside, a rising swell, and then the snap of it breaking into separate voices. I stared down at my own hands, at the way my nails had been painted a pale pink that didn't feel like mine. I flexed my fingers and felt the tightness of the dress waiting for me inside, draped over a chair like a polite threat. I wasn't unhappy. That was the part that made me feel guilty. My life was fine. I had a job that paid my rent. I had friends. I had dated men. Men had looked at me like they were hungry, and I had learned to be the kind of woman who could be eaten without making a mess. I had learned to smile at compliments and deflect anything too intimate with a joke. I had learned the choreography of flirting, the predictable arc of a first date, the way hands landed on hips or thighs when the night tilted toward something physical. I had even enjoyed it sometimes, or enjoyed the idea of it, or enjoyed being wanted, which is its own kind of drug. But lately, months, maybe longer, it felt like I was waiting for an emotion to arrive the way you wait for a delayed flight, watching the departure board, checking the time, pretending you're not disappointed. The sound of car doors closing pulled me out of my spiral. A small convoy of vendors had arrived near the barn. I watched a woman step out of a dark SUV with a camera bag slung crossbody and a second bag bouncing against her hip. She wore black pants and a white button down with the sleeves rolled to her elbows, practical shoes, hair pulled back in a low knot that somehow looked intentional rather than rushed. She moved like someone who had done this 100 times and still cared. She looked up, scanning the venue grounds the way you might scan a room for exits and light sources and potential disasters. Then her gaze landed briefly on me. It wasn't a staring moment. It was a simple acknowledgement, a flick of attention, but it startled me anyway, like someone calling my name in a crowded place. I raised a hand in a half wave without thinking. She smiled, quick, warm, like sunlight through a crack, and lifted 2 fingers in return. Then she turned toward the barn with purpose, the camera bag shifting easily across her body as if it was part of her. I stood there longer than I meant to, watching her disappear inside. When I went back into the house, the air was thick with perfume and anticipation. The makeup artist was blending shimmer onto Tessa's eyelids while Tessa talked about how she couldn't stop peeing from nerves. The maid of honor, Priya, was fastening earrings with the intensity of a surgeon. "You disappeared," Priya said when she saw me. "Don't you dare get emotional on us alone." "I just needed air," I said, and it came out too honest, like confession. She softened. "Okay, but 10 minutes. We have photos." Photos. The word landed with the weight of everything that would become proof later. We got dressed. The dress was a soft blush that made my skin look warmer than I felt. It hugged in all the wrong places, tight around my ribs and loose around my heart. I zipped it up and stared at myself in the mirror as if I were looking for someone to appear behind my eyes and tell me how to be. The ceremony was outside under an arch covered in flowers that looked almost absurd in their abundance. Peonies, roses, greenery spilling like a waterfall. Guests arrived in clusters, men in suits, women in summer dresses, everyone performing that mild excitement you're supposed to feel when love is scheduled. When the photographer stepped into view, it was like a change in barometric pressure. She moved through the chaos without raising her voice, touching shoulders lightly, guiding people with small gestures and a smile that made them want to cooperate. Her laugh popped out once when a groomsman made a stupid joke about tripping down the aisle, and it was warm and full, the kind of laugh that doesn't ask permission. Carla, I heard someone call her. The wedding planner said it with relief, like a missing puzzle piece had shown up. Carla crouched to take a photo of the bride's shoes, then stood and glanced up at us. Her eyes flicked across the line of bridesmaids and landed on me again. I felt it like a hand at my back, steady, supportive, impossible to ignore. Okay, she said, clapping once softly. Let's do a quick lineup and then I'll steal the bride. Her voice was calm, a little husky, like she drank tea with honey. She spoke with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how the day would go and how to make it look like magic. We lined up, we posed, we laughed on command, we pretended we were having the time of our lives because cameras are hungry and we feed them. At one point, Carla walked closer to adjust the angle of my bouquet. She didn't touch me at first. She hovered her hand, asking without words. Is it okay if I? She asked, and her eyes met mine. Yeah, I said, my throat too dry for a single syllable. Her fingers brushed the stems, repositioning them. Then she stepped back, the air between us settling. Perfect, she said. You have a very honest face. I blinked. Is that good? Her mouth tilted. It's beautiful. Just don't try to fix it. Let me catch it. My stomach did something small and ridiculous, like a tiny animal waking up. After that, I started noticing her the way you notice a song stuck in your head. She moved around us constantly, circling, ducking, backing up, stepping in close. Sometimes she was inches from Tessa's cheek, catching the glitter of tears. Sometimes she was across the lawn, kneeling to shoot through a gap in the guests. She was everywhere, and yet she never seemed frantic. She held the day in her hands and kept it from spilling. When the ceremony began, I stood to the side with the other bridesmaids, hands clasped around my bouquet, smiling until my cheeks hurt. Tessa walked down the aisle on her father's arm, and the groom's face broke open in that raw way that makes you believe in goodness. I looked at Carla then because she was nearest. She had her camera up, her eye pressed to the viewfinder, but her expression was soft. Focused, yes, but also moved. Like she was watching love in real time and still letting it get to her. Something in me tugged. What does it feel like, I wondered, to be that moved? Not by other people's love, but by your own. I tried to imagine myself at the end of an aisle. I tried to imagine the person waiting. In my mind, it was always a man by default, like a placeholder image you never bothered to replace. A suit, a tie, a smile, no details, just a shape. But today, watching Carla frame and capture, watching her hands steady the moment into something lasting, I couldn't stop imagining a different set of hands, a different kind of steadiness, someone looking at me like the moment mattered. When the vows were exchanged, when rings slid onto fingers, when the kiss happened and everyone cheered, I clapped and smiled and felt my own heart ache with something that wasn't jealousy exactly, but wasn't not jealousy either. It was longing without an address. After the ceremony, the chaos multiplied. Family photos, bridal party shots, candid laughter, people calling names, someone's aunt trying to wrangle a toddler who wanted to eat petals. Carla directed it all like a gentle conductor. Chin up a little. Lovely. Okay, now look at her like you've been best friends since kindergarten. Perfect. Now everyone laugh like someone just told the best joke in the world. When it was my turn for a solo shot with Tessa, Carla stepped closer again. Jenny, she said, reading my name from somewhere. Maybe a list, maybe memory. The fact that she had it at all made heat rise to my face. Yeah? Can I borrow you for 30 seconds after this? Just a quick bridesmaid portrait. The light is doing something really nice. My first instinct was to say no, to keep blending into the group like wallpaper. Instead, I heard myself say, sure. Tessa squeezed my hand. Go, be iconic. I followed Carla a few steps away from the crowd to a patch of shade near a row of trees. The sunlight filtered through leaves, dappling the grass like confetti. Okay, Carla said, lifting the camera. Just stand there. No, don't pose. Just breathe. I swallowed. I'm not good at photos. That's because people tell you to perform, she said. I'm not asking you to perform, I'm asking you to be here. Her words hit somewhere deep and quiet. I stood with my bouquet held loosely, shoulders back, trying to find my own body again. Carla lowered the camera for a second. Are you okay? I laughed, but it sounded thin. Yeah, just weddings make me weird. They do that, she said, and her smile wasn't teasing. It was understanding. What kind of weird? I hesitated. The trees above us shifted in a light breeze. Somewhere behind us, someone popped a champagne bottle and cheered. I don't know, I admitted. Like, everyone else knows what to do. And I'm just here, in the dress, pretending. Carla's gaze held mine, steady as a hand on the small of my back. Pretending what? That I fit, I said, and the honesty startled me again. She nodded slowly, like she'd heard this before, like she'd said it herself once. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I exhaled. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath. Carla lifted the camera again. Look at me, she said softly. Not the lens. Me. So I did. The camera clicked. Once. Twice. Then she lowered it and laughed a little under her breath, like she'd caught something she didn't expect. There you are, she murmured, almost to herself. My skin prickled. What? Nothing, she said, still smiling, and then her professional voice returned. Okay, go back before they start a search party. I walked back toward the noise with my heart doing unfamiliar things like it had been tipped slightly off its axis. At the cocktail hour, I drifted through conversations like a ghost. People asked me how I knew the bride. They told me I looked lovely. They handed me a drink. I smiled, thanked them, laughed at the appropriate moments. My body did all the right things while my mind kept snapping back to Carla's voice in the shade. There you are. Every time I spotted her across the lawn, my attention sharpened. She moved among couples holding hands, parents hugging children, friends clinking glasses. She captured love like it was a language she spoke fluently, and I kept wondering what it would feel like to be seen by her outside the frame. When the reception started, the barn glowed with string lights, warm gold against wood beams. Music filled the space, bass thumping through floorboards. The smell of food, roasted chicken, garlic, something sweet, made my stomach twist with hunger and nerves. Tessa and her husband did their first dance, a slow sway that turned into laughter when he stepped on her dress. Everyone cheered, and Carla moved around them, camera up, catching the way Tessa's head tilted back, the way his hands held her waist like she belonged there. I watched Carla watching them and felt something shift in me, like a door cracking open. Later, when the dance floor filled and the lights dimmed, I slipped out to the edge of the barn to cool off. The night air was damp and smelled like earth and spilled beer. Somewhere in the dark, crickets kept time. I leaned against the wall, looking up at the string lights stretched between trees. My feet ached, my cheeks ached from smiling, my chest ached from holding something in. Hey, a voice said. I turned and there she was. Carla, camera bag now set down nearby, her hair a little looser, a few strands escaping the knot. She looked tired in a human way, not a frazzled way, like someone who had been carrying beauty all day and was finally setting it down. Hey, I echoed, suddenly aware of my own breath, my own hands. She gestured toward the open door where the music spilled out. You escaped. I needed air, I said, repeating myself like a mantra. Carla nodded. Same. There was a pause where we both listened to the muffled thump of the song inside. It was something nostalgic, early 2000s, a song people screamed the words to even if they didn't remember all of them. Carla leaned back against the wall beside me, leaving a careful space. Her shoulder was close enough that I could feel heat radiating from her through the thin air. You did great today, she said. I blinked. I stood in a dress. You were present, she corrected. That's harder than people think. The words made my throat tighten. I looked at her profile, the line of her nose, the soft curve of her mouth, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. I don't usually feel present, I admitted, and the confession tasted like danger. Carla turned her head to look at me. The string lights cast soft gold across her face. What do you usually feel? Like I'm watching myself, I said. Like I'm in a photo, but I'm not the one taking it. Carla's expression softened. Yeah, she whispered, like she understood exactly what I meant. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was charged, like the air before lightning. I liked what you said earlier, she said finally, about pretending. I didn't mean to sound dramatic, I said, but my voice shook. It wasn't dramatic, she said. It was honest. My pulse thudded in my throat. You really think I have an honest face? Carla smiled, slow. I do. I swallowed. The night felt suddenly too small and too bright. Do you ever? I started, then stopped, embarrassed by the question that wanted to be born. Carla waited, not pushing. Do you ever get tired of photographing other people's love? I asked. Like, does it make you want something, or does it just feel like work? Her laugh was quiet, and this time there was something a little bittersweet in it. Both, she said. Some days it's just work, and some days it makes me want to go home and not be alone. Something in my chest tightened. Are you alone? I asked before I could stop myself. Carla's eyes held mine. Right now? No. My breath caught. I didn't move, but my whole body leaned toward her internally, like a compass needle suddenly finding north. I've been trying not to flirt with you all day, Carla admitted, and her voice was so matter of fact it made my stomach flip. My laugh came out startled, high. You have? Yeah, she said, smiling, because I'm working and you're in the wedding party, and that's a whole thing. I stared at her, the words not fitting neatly into my reality. I I don't know what I'm doing, I said. Carla's gaze didn't waver. We don't have to do anything you don't want to do. The simplicity of it made my eyes sting. Consent offered like a blanket, like warmth. I want to, I heard myself say. It was barely audible. Carla's smile softened into something tender. Okay, she said. Can I touch you? My skin lit up at the question. Yes, I whispered. She lifted her hand slowly, giving me time to change my mind, and brushed her fingertips against my cheek. It was the lightest touch, a question in physical form. My whole body responded like it had been waiting for permission to wake up. I leaned into her hand without thinking. Carla's thumb traced the edge of my jaw. You're shaking, she murmured. I'm not, I lied, then laughed, breathless. Carla laughed too, warm and soft, and then her hand slid to the back of my neck, fingers threading into the fine hairs there. The intimacy of it made my knees feel unreliable. Jenny, she said, like she was grounding me in my own name. Is this okay? Yes, I said again, firmer this time. More than okay. Carla leaned in slowly, giving me space to meet her or pull away. I met her. Her lips touched mine, gentle at first, like a promise, then a little deeper, like she was learning the shape of my mouth. I made a small sound I didn't recognize, and Carla's hand tightened at my neck, steadying me. The kiss wasn't like kissing men. It wasn't a performance of desire. It was a conversation. It was warmth and softness and an electric current running through the places we touched. I felt it in my collarbone, my stomach, my hands. I felt it in the way my body leaned toward hers as if gravity had changed. When we pulled apart, my forehead rested briefly against hers. I could smell her, something clean and subtle, soap and maybe citrus, the faintest hint of sweat from the long day. Real. Human. Wow, I breathed, because my vocabulary had abandoned me. Carla's laugh was quiet and delighted. Yeah, she said. Wow. I blinked rapidly, as if I could clear the world into focus. I've never. I started, then stopped, suddenly terrified of being ridiculous. Carla tilted her head. Never what? I've never kissed a woman, I confessed. The words felt like stepping off a ledge. Carla's expression didn't change into surprise or judgment. It softened into something even gentler. Okay, she said. Thank you for telling me. I don't even know why, I said, voice wobbling. I mean, I've dated men. I've never thought about women like this. And now I feel like I'm on fire. Carla's eyes warmed, a smile tugging at her mouth. You're not doing anything wrong, she said. You're just finding something. The way she said it made my chest ache with relief. Inside, the music shifted into a slow song, and people whooped like they'd been waiting for an excuse to be dramatic. Outside, we stood in our own pocket of quiet, the string lights above us humming like a halo. Carla glanced toward the door. Do you want to get out of here? She asked. Just go somewhere quieter. We can talk or not talk, whatever you want. I should have thought about consequences, about Tessa needing me, about the fact that I was a bridesmaid in a dress I couldn't run in, about the messy, beautiful complication of choosing something new. Instead, I heard myself say, yes. Carla picked up her bag, but then paused. We can take it slow, she said. We can stop at any time. I want you, I said, and the bluntness startled me. My cheeks went hot. Sorry, that sounded. Carla smiled, her eyes bright. It sounded honest. We walked to the parking area under the trees, our shoulders brushing once, twice, like accidents that weren't accidents. Carla opened the passenger door of her car for me, and I slid in, the leather seat cool against the back of my thighs. She rounded the car and got in, and when she started the engine, the radio came on low and then clicked off. The quiet felt intimate. As she drove, the venue lights receded behind us, shrinking into a cluster of gold in the dark. My phone buzzed once in my purse. Probably the group chat, probably Priya sending a meme. I didn't check it. Carla drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting loosely near the center console. After a few minutes, she glanced at me. Can I hold your hand? She asked, like it mattered. My throat tightened again, that constant state of almost crying that I couldn't explain. Yes, I said. She reached over and our fingers laced together. Her hand was warm and slightly rough at the fingertips, the texture of someone who used her hands for real things. I stared at our joined hands like they were proof that I wasn't imagining any of this. At a red light, Carla lifted our hands and pressed a quick kiss to my knuckles. I felt it in my whole body, a rush of heat and tenderness. You're really sweet, I whispered, half laughing at the absurdity of my own voice. Carla smiled without looking away from the road. So are you. Her apartment was small and quiet and lived in. It smelled like coffee and clean laundry and something floral that might have been a candle. There were framed photos on the wall, landscapes, candid shots, a portrait of a laughing older woman with the same eyes as Carla. A camera lens sat on a shelf like a sculpture. Carla set her bag down carefully, like it contained something sacred, then turned to me and asked, Do you want water? Tea? Do you want to sit? I want, I started, then laughed because I couldn't finish the sentence without blushing. Carla stepped closer, stopping just in front of me. Tell me, she said, voice soft. I took a breath. I want you to kiss me again, I said. Carla's smile was slow, almost reverent. Okay, she whispered. Come here. She kissed me again, and this time there was less hesitation, more certainty. Her hands found my waist, the curve of my back, the place where my dress zipped up like a sealed secret. My hands found her shoulders, then slid up to her neck, feeling the pulse there, the warmth of her skin. Every time our mouths met, something in me unraveled. It wasn't just desire, though that was there, bright and undeniable, a wildness that made me dizzy. It was recognition. It was like my body had been speaking a language I'd never learned consciously, and suddenly it was fluent. Carla pulled back just enough to look at me, eyes dark in the soft lamplight. Still okay? She asked. Yes, I breathed. More than okay. She kissed my forehead, then my cheek, then the corner of my mouth like she was mapping me gently. The care in it made my chest ache. We moved slowly toward her couch, then toward her bedroom, the night folding around us like velvet. There were moments of laughter, me fumbling with my dress, Carla helping with a tenderness that made me want to cry. My shoes kicked off like punctuation marks. Carla brushing hair out of my face and saying softly, You're allowed to feel good. When the rest of the world narrowed down to breath and warmth and hands, it didn't feel like a scandal. It felt like coming home to a place I didn't know I'd been missing. Later, we lay tangled under a light blanket, my cheek pressed against Carla's shoulder, the room quiet except for the soft sound of her breathing. The air smelled faintly of sweat and candle wax and something sweet I couldn't name. My dress was draped over a chair like a shed skin. I stared at the ceiling, overwhelmed by the fact that I was still myself and also not the same. Carla's fingers traced slow circles on my arm. Hey, she whispered. Hey, I whispered back. You're thinking too loud, she said, smiling into my hair. I laughed, shaky. I don't know what this means. Carla's hand paused, then resumed, steady. It means you had a night, she said. It means you listened to something in you. It doesn't have to mean anything more than what you want it to mean. I swallowed. What do you want it to mean? Carla shifted slightly so she could see my face. Her eyes were soft, serious. I want to take you on a date, she said, when you're not in a bridesmaid dress, when I'm not working. I want to know you outside of borrowed moments. My chest tightened with something that felt like hope and fear holding hands. I've never dated a woman, I said. Carla smiled gently. Then we'll do it like it's new, she said. One step at a time. You set the pace. I blinked hard. Okay, I whispered. I want that. Carla kissed my temple. Okay, she whispered back. Me too. In the morning, sunlight spilled through Carla's blinds in pale stripes. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and when I finally looked, there were missed calls from Priya and a text from Tessa that read, You alive? Also, I'm so happy I could burst. Call me later. I sat up, suddenly hit with the reality of it. The wedding, my absence, the explanations, the shifting of the story people thought they knew about me. Carla, still half asleep, reached for my hand under the blanket. You okay? She murmured. I think I might be in trouble, I said, and my voice wobbled with laughter and panic. Carla opened one eye. With who? With everyone, I said. With myself. Carla sat up a little, rubbing her face, hair messy and adorable, in a way that made my chest squeeze. We don't have to tell anyone anything you're not ready to tell, she said. But you probably should text the bride back so she doesn't send a search party. I laughed, relief leaking in. Yeah, I said. Yeah, okay. I texted Tessa. Alive. I'm sorry I vanished. I'll explain later. I love you. Then I set the phone down and looked at Carla in the morning light. Really looked. She looked softer without the camera between us. Still steady, still warm. What? She asked, smiling. I keep thinking about you taking my picture, I said. How you said I had an honest face. Carla's smile deepened. You do. I didn't know I could feel like this, I admitted, voice small. I didn't know I could want someone like this. Carla reached up and brushed my cheek with the backs of her fingers, the same gentle question as last night. You're allowed, she said simply. The words cracked something open. I leaned into her touch, eyes burning. I thought about the wedding photos Carla would deliver in a few weeks. Tessa and her husband kissing under the arch, the bridal party laughing, the reception lights glowing like captured stars. I thought about how those images would become history, how everyone would look back and say, look, that was the day everything changed. And I realized, with a strange calm, that something had changed for me too. Not because I had kissed a woman, though I had, and the memory made my skin hum, but because for the first time in a long time, I could imagine myself in a photo and know exactly who I wanted standing beside me. Not a placeholder, not a default, not a shape I'd filled in because it was expected. Someone real, someone with a calm presence and a warm laugh who asked before she touched me and made me feel like my honesty was beautiful. Carla kissed me again, slow and unhurried, and the desire that flared in me wasn't frightening this time. It was a compass. It was my body telling the truth. When I pulled back, smiling like an idiot, Carla's eyes crinkled. Date, she reminded me. Date, I agreed, my voice full of a joy that felt brand new. Outside, somewhere in the world, the wedding was still happening in people's stories. Inside, in this quiet room with striped sunlight and tangled sheets, my own story had finally stepped into focus. And for once, I didn't feel like I was watching from outside the frame.